Welcome to this edition of the Iowa blog. I'm your host, Greg Wynn. We're continuing our presentation on Sukah, which is synonymous with returning to the Garden of Great Joy, known as Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. We are celebrating this with, of course, as you can see, as a roaring fire outside. We might even go and stock it with a few more logs as the program progresses. This is symbolic of what Yahweh has requested of us on this day, which is that we walk towards the fire so that we can appreciate its transformative nature. We aren't to walk into the fire. We're not to touch the fire. This isn't a test of any kind. The fire on this day, as well as on Matzah and certainly on Yom Kippurim, and then again on Sukah, is a direct instruction from Yahweh so that we approach this fire such that we recognize that Yahweh's intent with these 7 Moed Mikre is to transform our souls. You see, that fire is now consuming dead organic material, physical material, like pretend they're our bodies for a moment, and transforming them into light and radiant energy, because the carrier of our souls, for us to spend an eternity with God, for us to get off this rock and actually explore the extent of the universe with 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars, is that we need to shed the limitations of our physical bodies and have them transformed so that the carrier of our souls becomes radiant energy and light. And that is what that fire represents, and is why we're celebrating it as part of this wonderful opportunity to meet with our God and to camp out with him on Sukah. So this is what we are speaking of in this day. That is why it is blazing away outside. And you can see it, the flames even reflecting in the water, because the water is symbolic of us being cleansed and prepared to enter Yahweh's presence, something that's going to occur on Teruah for the final remnant of Yisrael. And it is a source of life. So it is fire and water that is the metaphor being shown before us. The most prolific of the prophets in terms of his great expose on the problem of the religiosity of Israel and how that caused the estrangement from Yahweh, as well as how in the end there will be a reconciling meeting on Teruah leading to Kippurim, such that we can Sukah, camp out with Yahweh forevermore, is told in the first through, fourth chapters, and then throughout the prophetic text of Isaiah, Yeshayah. We had just begun the 4th chapter at the end of our preceding program. So I want to continue along in that vein. And it says, in that day, which we're now talking about, Teruah, which leads to Kippurim and is part of Chag Sukah. Remember, we're told 3 times a year to meet with Yahweh. They are Chag Matzah, which includes Pesach and Bikurim, Shabuah, and Chag Sukah, which includes Teruah and Kippurim. Then in that day, 7 women who are a bit hard-pressed. They had been unwilling to learn, but now they're seeking fortification and restoration, and they're going to demonstrate at long last the resolve to prevail. Will be with one man, and they will approach, shouting, "We're ready to eat. We'll eat our bread. We will wear the appropriate clothes." Isn't that a marvelous statement of exactly the exasperation that will lead this final remnant of Yisrael, such that the adulterous woman is finally prepared to be cleansed, to be resolved of her guilt prior to the return of her king on Kippurim. "Nevertheless, let us be called by your name with it upon us, so as to transfer and withdraw our reproach and contempt." This is the intent, again, of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. Yahweh has told us this is going to occur on Teruah. Eliah is going to be the master of ceremonies. Yahweh is going to release the waters. He's going to ignite the fire. This is all part of what God has said is so essential for us to understand at this time. And that fire is exactly symbolic of what is going to transpire at this moment to purge this mortal remnant of Israel of guilt. And the reason it is, we see the reference to the 7 women at this time is really twofold. One is Yeshaya in the 17th chapter. We'll speak of 2 to 3 that are in the uppermost branches of an olive tree, and 4 to 5 in the branches which have been cut away, representing Yehudim and Yisrael. And it is said that these olives will be protected by the work of the Grog, who is that rocky and sharp dividing line between right and wrong on this day. Protected, if you will, by the Parah, this productive bull who will offer his life at this time. And then this goes on to say, in that day, which is his day, living vegetation will sprout and thrive, branching out and growing. This is Shemach. This is symbolic of what David represents. He is the great branch of the tree of lives. And that is what these people, particularly these women, are being offered. This adulterous woman, so that she is prepared to be betrothed to her returning king, Dod, come Kippurim, which is part of Chag Matzah. And ultimately, it is also the main branch of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which will enable our return, not so much mine. I'm already guaranteed a slot, as are all of God's covenant family. But this is speaking of this mortal remnant who will be assembled at this time. And just as the tree of knowledge is what caused Adam and Chawah to be expelled from the garden because they weren't ready to process all that needed to be known to avail themselves of the tree of lives, which is Dod's sacrifice as the Passover lamb and the soul who carried our guilt into Sheol so that we could be part of God's covenant family. As we approach this date certain, just 8 years from now, the celebration of Chag Matzah, or Chag Sukah, what we're going to find is it's the branch from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is all about this. This becomes the tree of knowledge, which will bring back this remnant of Yisrael into the garden. So that which caused them to be expelled will be that which causes this remnant to be included. It will take them back with understanding to the tree of lives, planted in the beautiful nature of this thriving garden, because the earth is being restored to the conditions of Gan Eden. And it says, this day, branching out and growing for Yahweh, it will be beautiful and it will be splendorous. It'll be the most awe-inspiring sight the world has ever witnessed. We are literally approaching a time where God is going to restore this polluted and war-ravaged planet, with polluted as it is by all manner of religious faiths and political mantras, and he is going to restore it to the conditions found in Eden. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be splendorous. It's going to be spread out and attractive. It's going to be desirable again. And this is what our Father is bringing us back to. If you want to understand Sukah, you need to understand the garden. There is no even a nuance of separation between the celebration of Chag Sukah and life in Gan Eden. They are synonymous. Then he will approach as a glorious manifestation along with the majestic and imminent, wonderful, fruitful offspring of the land. God is going to return with his beloved son. His beloved son will return magnificent and wonderful, but so will God at this moment on Yom Kippurim, which is in the heart of Chag Sukah. And then we're going to see the offspring become fruitful again, this mortal remnant of Yisrael who is being allowed to witness Yahweh's return with Dod as well as entrance into Gan Eden for 1,000 years, and the celebration that is taking place in the land. There will be the fruitful offspring, not only of the Zeroah, but also of everything that Yahweh has sown through his prophets up to this point. He says the remnant of survivors of Yisrael and Yehudah will have an attractive and shining appearance. This is Yeshaya, Isaiah 4:1 and 4:2. We're talking about the remnant of Yisrael on this time. This is the entire purpose of this experience. And Rich, we can keep the eye on the fire. We don't really need the text. I've got the text before me and can cover that. But I'd love to see both this inside shot that shows the camera, our environment here in the library, because we're conveying this out of what we have learned through those books, and really the beauty of that fire on the outside, so that the symbolism of it resonates with all who wish to join us in this celebration of Sukah. So it is the remnant of survivors. This is the remnant of Yisrael who will be gathered by Yahweh on Teruah, again, the first day of the celebration of Chag Sukah. And God is reaching out at this time exclusively to Yisrael and Yehudah to include them as part of his family. There will be goyim that are brought in as well, but they will be the workers of this celebration of 1,000 years of Shabbat and of Sukkah. And so the remnant of survivors that are as the focus of Yahweh's attention is indeed Yisrael and Yehudah. And as a result of all of these things that are transpiring, they will have this shining and beautiful appearance. You notice that in Gan Eden, there were no clothes. And that is because while Adam listened to Yahweh and while Chawa precluded going off on her desire to be a mother goddess and twisted Yahweh's testimony, they were very comfortable being exposed to God. It is only once they twisted God's testimony to serve a really inappropriate agenda, with it being Chawa that wanted to be a goddess, that caused them to be concerned about their nakedness. And as we go forward, I don't know what the apparel will be for the 1,000 years of Sukkah, but since they felt no shame and nakedness, and they appeared beautiful, and that God created us to enjoy one another in this way, we'll wait and see what this shining appearance is all about. But clearly, many of those who will have, all of those who will have availed themselves of what Dod has achieved through the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and those who benefit, many of those who benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, are going to have a glowing appearance. This fire is going to purge them. Everyone is going to look a bit like Moshe did when he came down off of the mountain. They said his face was glowing. I think that is going to be the case, because this fire is going to be from Yahweh. And on as we move from Teruah to Kippurim, we're going to see Dod's seat of honor being as brilliant as the sun, and Yahweh's presence, and Yahweh returning with Dod, the Messiah. And so there's every reason to think that all of those who bask in this beautiful scene will glow, as did Moshe previously. So our past in Eden will be symbolic of where we are going. We could say that it's representing future history, and that during this Shabbat celebration of Sukkah, we are going to be able to re-enter the Garden of Eden after 6,000 years of it being escorted out of it. So Yahweh's word remains constant. What he said long ago remains true even for right now. And God is surrounded by what he perceives as beautiful. And that is his family at this time, and his people, and life. God loves life. He thinks it's beautiful and good. So when really beauty is analyzed, we can appreciate what God thinks is appropriate for us. And more we understand, more we appreciate, the more we accept the conditions that existed in Eden, the better. There is our beloved Rich out there as the fire tender. We may want to teach him that he can drop wood into the fire rather than put his hand into the fire. But nonetheless, we appreciate Rich adding some organic material to our flame to demonstrate the purpose of the fire being transformative. He was maybe taking the metaphor a little too far and making it his own body that is being transformed. But nonetheless, we love Rich anyway. We were just saying, Rich, he just walked back in, that maybe we'll demonstrate that without burning your own flesh the next time that we do it.
Close, but no cigar.
No cigar.
Didn't get burned.
Didn't get burned. Okay. No, some hairs may have been singed in the process, but nothing more. Thank you. So then it will come to pass that he who remains in Zion with the remnant spared in Jerusalem will be called set apart. For those who approach him will be written and inscribed in the book of lives. In Jerusalem, the source from which guidance and teaching regarding reconciliation flow. The reason this is so beautiful is, again, God is focusing on this remnant. So Yashaya is telling us of what's going to transpire on Chag Sukah. What a marvelous insight. So you don't just have to rely on what God wrote and inspired through the Torah, but you can combine it with the lesson of the great prophet as he brings us forward in time, writing of this event, and tells us that this is all about this mortal remnant of Israel that is plays such a pivotal role in Teruah, which is, again, the first day of Chag Matzah. God said that he's bringing through a series of chariots everyone around the world who will be receptive to this message and to the cleansing of their souls of religion by way of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah and the waters that he releases and the fire that he ignites. It's the scene that we see outside, and that fire and those waters are going to continue right through the celebration of Sukkah. It is this unified event, and that we're going to witness the fiery light of Yahweh and the majestic nature of the seat of honor of Dod as they return from Shama'in. It'd be the third arrival, the third coming, if you will, of our Messiah and King in Dod, David. So all of this will come to pass so that he who remains, who is part of this remnant in Zion. Zion is the ridge line of Moriah, Mount Moriah. Moriah means to revere Yahweh. Zion means signs posted along the way that show the path that we must follow through the Moed Mikre by way of the covenant from the house of Dod, which is so essential up because Dod is the exemplar of the covenant. He's the one who made the covenant possible by this sacrifice, Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, which enables everything else, that draws us up that ridge line so that we can approach the house of our God, the house for Yahweh's name, which is called the temple. And a beautiful rendering of the house for Yahweh's name and the covenant family is going to be reestablished at the very top of Mount Moriah, in all likelihood comprised of light, of energy. Going to be magnificent. With the remnant spared. That's the purpose of the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, so that Israel, rather than telling God to shut up and go away, as they did the last time that they met directly together, that Yahweh spoke directly to them, been 3,400 and some 50 years prior to this date. We're not going to have a return to that embitteredness, to that foolishness, where that darkness inside of their souls, their propensity to be religious, caused them to feel exceedingly vulnerable when exposed to God's brilliance, his goodness, his light, and the tenor of his true voice. And this time, Well, they're going to be purged of all of that so that they are comfortable being exposed to Yahweh. It's going to be like life was in the garden. And all of this is taking place in Jerusalem, which is the source of guidance and teaching on reconciliation, and they will be called set apart. Nothing is more important if you want to be part of God's family, if you want to be part of forevermore, than being Kodesh. Religion is the opposite of Kodesh. Religion is common. Politics are common. Conspiracies are common. Militancy is common. If you want to be part of God's family, if you want to exist beyond 8 years from now, if you want to be among those who are either harvested on Shabuah and Teruah, or you're in this remnant that enters the Gan Eden during Sukah, then you must be set apart to God. You must be separated. You must be unique. You must be distinct from all others. And that is the only way for you to approach him and for you to be written and ascribed in the book of lives. It occurs at this moment. The test is prescribed in Numbers 5. That story of the adulterous woman, why this is speaking to these 7 women who are finally ready for this. They're ready to be tested in this way. It is the ash, it is the water, it is what is being prepared for them to consume and to be surrounded by in the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah on the first day of Chag Sukah, that is going to determine who can be trusted and who can enter the millennial Shabbat and be written in this book of lives. All taking place not in New York, not in Washington, D.C., not in London, not in Mecca, not in the Vatican, all in Jerusalem, the source from which guidance and teaching regarding reconciliation flow. Yeshaya is the ultimate wordsmith. No one painted pictures with words more beautifully than did he. We have our master woodsman now that is going out and will soon be adding wood to the fire. This is Shannon, who was the star of our previous show. By the way, at this moment, I would like to thank the many of you who reached out to thank Shannon for doing this last show, who loved your visits with him, who enjoyed him recalling his many trips across the country. We didn't even get to the Northeast, and there were so many wonderful people to meet along the way as he did his final trip north prior to coming here. And maybe and one of the days while he's here, we'll get him to expand on that. But it was endearing to see everyone's love and support for Shannon and their appreciation for other members of this covenant family of Yahweh. So with the religious and political leadership of Israel removed, along with those who are dressed in support of them, those who remain in Jerusalem will either be covenant and therefore they will be eternal beings comprised of light, or they will be this remnant who have been purged and are glowing now in Yahweh's presence as they enter this marvelous period. So he was a man now that knows how to stack his wood in preparation for when it's appropriate to put it on. Shannon has built his own home, and he is a master woodsman. And my good friend Rich is a city boy from Kansas City that is best known for strumming his guitar and playing with bands. And this is Asher saying we are so glad to have Shannon back. Very well done, Shannon.
Mountain man.
There's a mountain man. We know who to send out when we need fire. All right, so this is a marvelous picture of exactly what Yahweh is offering, what you should expect, and if you want to be part of this, and you need to know. You can guarantee your participation by accepting the terms and conditions of the covenant now and of joining us on the Shabuah harvest. You can even have a high likelihood of being there if you survive to participate in the Teruah gleaning. And of course, you can be among those tested and purged of religiosity on this day in Teruah, the first day of Chag Sukah. But you need to understand that most of those who are alive now and listening to this message will not be alive to take advantage of this 8 years from now. We're entering the time of Israel's troubles, and it is going to be horrendous. And I should say that I am so sad for Israel. Now Israel is celebrating, almost deifying Donald Trump because of the return of 20 living hostages, requiring total capitulation with the Muslims who perpetrated Al-Aqsa flood. To trade those 20 lives, you're sacrificing 7 million. That's the deal that you just made with the devil. That is the deal that Donald Trump made in capitulating to the Muslims who perpetrated Al-Aqsa flood for exactly this purpose. And it's going to be devastating. Hamas was not defeated. They're not going to lay down their weapons. They're not going to relinquish power. Any overture to that nature will simply be under the basis of Hudabayah, which is a story everyone should be aware of, where Muhammad got cold feet coming into Mecca with too few men under arms, and remembering that the last time that he was there, he was laughed out of town as a madman and as a demon-possessed fool for imagining his wild ass ride to Jerusalem, to Al-Aqsa Mosque, and for his satanic verses. And since that time, he'd become a terrorist, but not formidable enough to take what was actually Petra, which was Kaabaville at the time. And so in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Muhammad said, I will renounce that Allah exists. I will renounce that I am a messenger of Allah. And I will promise that me, myself, and these Muslims will not commit any more acts of terrorism. We will not murder. We will not enslave. We will not rape. We will not do any of the things that we have done over the previous decade. And we will make this promise for 10 years. The following year, of course, they came down with more men under arms and promptly murdered their way into the control of Kaabaville. And Allah, to exonerate his prophet, non-prophet as the case may be, issued this decree in the 9th surah, where he says any agreement between a Muslim and a non-Muslim is not binding on the Muslim. So the Muslim is free to make any deal they wish to make, such that it is not binding on them. It is a stratagem to lure the unsuspecting into a false sense of security. That is the response of Muslims for Hudabayah, and that is exactly what is transpiring now. And if you are ignorant of it, shame on you. If you're dancing in the streets and think this is a good thing, you have just committed suicide by acknowledging and accepting a deal that was made with the devil. So, whereupon meeting these conditions, the upright one of mine shall wash away the excrement and filth of the daughters of Zion, and by association purge and rinse away the blood of Jerusalem from the midst, by the way of the spirit of good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes, and by the spirit of blowing rage. This is another essential insight. I have repeated many, many times, and I might repeat it until I'm blue in the face, but the fact is that in studying the prophets, I became the first to understand precisely what's going to happen on Teruah, which rabbis unfortunately call Rosh Hashanah, as if it was the beginning of the Babylonian New Year. Kippurim, which is a day of reconciliations, not of atonement or abasement. And Sukah, which is not a time for 4 species and an ugly piece of fruit, and living in a hut, but instead anticipating a return to the Garden of Eden. That I was the first person to actually understand everything that will transpire on all 3 of those days. I know when they'll be fulfilled, beginning with the 23rd and 24th of September 2033 for Teruah, the 2nd of October, 6:22 p.m. when the sun sets in Jerusalem, on October 2nd, as I said, in 2033, when Dode and Yahweh return. Dode is your Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is the Savior. He is the returning and former king who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakudim. That occurs on Yom Kippurim, such that 5 days later we re-enter Sukah after the entire world has been transformed to the conditions of the Garden of Eden. And on that first day, a Shabbat of Teruah, we're going to witness the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, which Elia is going to reprise his role as master of ceremonies as he did exactly 2,888 years prior, when he excoriated the religious and political establishment of Israel over the sacrifice of the same bull. And that sacrifice, the Adam of Parah, is what's going to purge this mortal remnant, removing the excrement and filth of the daughters of Zion, and purge and rinse away all of the blood, which is in this case symbolic of a menstruating woman. And it might seem graphic to you, but this scene is set with Yahweh having said to his people through Hosea that he is divorcing. He wrote a letter of divorce to Israel and said, I am divorcing you for religious infidelity. That's why he had Hosea marry a religious prostitute. And now to resolve that, he is not going to remarry, even symbolically, Yisrael, but his beloved, his son, is returning. The king is going to be betrothed to Yisrael. He is the groom who wants his bride back in Numbers 5. And the bride he wants back is a Yisrael woman that is covered with filth. She needs to be purged of religiosity and the customs of politics, and have all that washed away so that she is prepared to be his bride. That is what is transpiring. That is what is being discussed. And I love, just adore Yeshaya Isaiah for sharing this so clearly. And I'm telling you, if you're listening to this, this is the first time in human history that anyone has understood and could properly explain what God has foretold is going to happen during the fulfillment of Chag Sukah. And by the way, Sukah is the 7th of October in 2033. It will be, just as Teruah will be celebrated by a full solar eclipse that year, Sukah will be celebrated by a full lunar eclipse that year. It's year 6000. Yeah, we will then enter the 7th millennia of the human experience in the garden. By reading the prophets, I came to all of these conclusions. And then in the book that explains who the Choder is and how he is going to deliver these messages, which is Isaiah in the 11th chapter, I began to understand my role in bringing this to you. And now we are reading here in the 4th chapter, the first time that anyone has understood that this is the very series of events that God has foretold and exactly how they're going to play out and what's going to be so magnificent about this day. So it's not only that that meeting these conditions and everything that is transpiring during this celebration of Chag Sukah, of the Moed of Sukah, the upright one, the one who is right, is going to, and this is one of many titles that on occasion is being ascribed to the one who is providing this remedy. Elia is going to be the master of ceremonies, but it is the Adam of Parah that is going to offer this sacrifice. And that sacrifice, just as it is explained in Numbers 19 and in Numbers 5, is going to wash away the excrement and filth. The daughters of Zion are going to be cleansed, and they're going to have this uncleanliness rinsed of their blood, all in Jerusalem, all in the midst of the spirit of Mishpat, of coming to understand and appreciate the means to exercise good judgment, to make sound decisions about all of these things that I have shared, because you need to know them and accept them, to benefit from them. And that is what mishpat means. It is a compound of my, which is to ponder the implications of, shafat, to make a informed and rational decision. And then there is a second spirit, not just of good judgment, and that will be of those who are deemed worthy to enter the Garden of Eden, who are trustworthy enough, to use Yahweh's phrase. But there's also a spirit of blowing rage. And that is because on Teruah, everyone who is overtly religious, still overtly political, conspiratorial, anti-Semitic, militant, every Christian, Muslim, practitioner of Judaism, the Haredim, are going to be incinerated. It'll be the spirit of blowing rage. God is not going to allow the conditions that he had to endure during the Exodus to continue. He is not going to allow the hostility that has been brought to bear against Israel and his people for 3,000 years to continue. He is putting an absolute end to it. All of those, politically and religiously, conspiratorially, racially, who have opposed his people, will be gone. Paradise indeed. So God is a proponent of righteous indignation. He is setting an example that we should follow. We should know what to hate, why to hate, when to hate. And if we don't know how to hate, what to hate, why to hate, then we can't be moral. We don't belong in Eden, because the only way that you can protect the innocent is to hate those who would prey upon them. The very acceptance, for example, of Islam over the years, 14th century, has led to the deaths of 250 million people. Not knowing what to despise, the world tolerated something that was more murderous than any political mantra ever uttered. 9/7 occurred, or 10/7 occurred, the 7th of October, because the world remained tolerant of Islam rather than hating what it should rightfully despise, for perpetrating genocide and apartheid, for being the most oppressive and repressive force ever released on humankind. So anytime there is a mention of Zion in particular, we ought to see Dode's words, his Mizmor, on those signs. They are, after all, posted between his home and Yahweh's, directing us from one to another. And here it is repeated. Then Yahweh will create, initiating something cutting edge upon every location and dwelling place along the ridgeline of Zion, as well as over her Mikra, by way of a cloud by day, along with smoke, and with brilliant shining radiance and majestic light by flaming fire by night. For indeed, upon all of this manifestation of power and glory will be a sheltering canopy, a chuppah. Now, all of this material from Yasha'yah, here we are back in Isaiah 4:5, is material that we have reflected upon. And yet I understand, having tried to live with this myself, that unless you reinforce things, you can't remember them. And for something to be useful to you, you need to be able to transfer it from short-term to long-term memory. And hearing something introduced and then stated and then summarized is one of the best ways to achieve that. And so in this particular statement, we find Yahweh saying that he is going to create something unlike anything that has previously existed. The celebration of Chag Sukah in year 6000 Yah, between Friday evening, the 23rd of September of 2033, and through the entire celebration of Sukah itself, which begins on the 7th, lasts through the 14th in terms of 7 days, and then the 15th of October of that year as the 8th day. During all of that time, there is going to be cutting edge things initiated for the first time. God is going to be doing things to the earth that will show his creative brilliance, all for us to witness. And this is going to happen in every location and dwelling place along the ridgeline of Zion initially. And it's going to be a celebration of her mikra. The mikra are the invitations to be called out and meet, of coming together to be welcome. They are Pesach Matzah Bakorim, which Dode fulfilled 2,000 years prior to this date, where he actually wrote of first person precisely how he was going to be the Passover lamb, how he was going to carry our guilt on his soul into Sheol to make us appear perfect before God, and then for him to sign our adoption papers so that we could follow him as very children of God through the covenant relationship. Followed by 7 sevens, the promise of the Shabbat, Shabuah, which is going to be fulfilled in 2 stages between the 22nd of May, 2026, 7 months from now, when Israel will be dissected and her heart will be cut out, just as the case was in Czechoslovakia for the last World War, with Donald Trump being the Neville Chamberlain, according to the prophets, and giving this to the Islamic terrorists, making Israel indefensible. And the most bitter battle will be initiated the following year, along with the harvest of Shabuah on the 11th of June in 2027. It will be 1,000 times worse rendition of Alaska flood. This is the first 4 steps along the way to God, called these mikra, plural mikre, followed by this celebration that Isaiah is telling us all about right now, which is Chag Sukah, Teruah, Kapurim, and Sukah itself. And God is going to manifest himself and what he is achieving by way of a cloud by day, along with the smoke. That smoke and that cloud from the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah is going to billow and add a great, look how beautiful that is. That's going to be right there on the Temple Mount as flames leaping up to the heaven. And that aroma, that rich aroma, is going to permeate the air. We're going to hear the crackle of the flames and the smoke symbolically rising to the heaven as we all process how that fire transforms our souls into eternal beings comprised of light. And that's going to happen during the day, and we're going to see the brilliant, shining radiance and the majestic light of a flaming fire, this Ish by night. So symbolic of what we're witnessing outside. It's why we decided that we would do this show exactly as you're witnessing it now, with the fire and the waters, the purging waters, and this searing flames of this fire that are so transformative, taking center stage in this program, roaring and lapping up to the heavens, leaping up by night. This, my friends, is Sukah. For indeed, upon all of this manifestation of power and glory, kabod, will be a sheltering canopy. I just have to laugh. I'm sorry. But 300 years before this date, the man that made all this possible, the man who that Sukah has been established for, because that Sukah isn't telling you to go build a hut. That chuppah is specifically designed to be, as it is described elsewhere in the writings and the prophets, it is a wedding booth. And the bride, as we know, is a purged Yisrael, and the groom is the returning king, Dod. And Sukah begins his honeymoon in that that canopy, that chuppah. And what I'm laughing at is, well, first of all, that is insightful. So you can't celebrate this by building yourself a hut, a chuppah of your own. This is supposed to be to commemorate the honeymoon following the wedding on Yom Kippurim of Dod David to the purged bride of Yisrael that is purged by the sacrifice of the Adam Parah on Teruah. And so this represents Dod. But the reason I'm laughing is kabod is the word that Dod used when he was getting back at a really nasty woman, Shaul's daughter, the man that wanted him dead, the man that became demon possessed, got his head handed to him by the Philistines. His daughter, Michal, was all upset that Dod, once Obed-Edom, the one serving from Edom, took responsibility for bringing the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. Dod said, well, he's taking care of that. I can rely on this man from Edom to accomplish what needs to be done with the Ark of the Covenant, which means now I can celebrate this occasion. And he put the ephod on of the high priest, because he's going to serve as the high priest when he anoints the Ark of the Covenant, when he returns on Kippurim, as is prescribed in the Torah, to certify our reconciliation in our relationship with Yahweh. But he is then going from there into his wedding and his wedding canopy and into Eden, where clothing is optional. And that was all he was wearing. And so Michal, who was really snooty, she thought she was just better than Dod and everybody else. She really had an attitude. She was a really disgusting woman. And she insisted that Dod had embarrassed himself even in front of the concubines. And so Dod's retort is, we'll share this whole narrative with you because it's prophetic of our time. Dod's narrative was that since you have mentioned those concubines, it is they who will determine whether or not I am kabod. I am significant where it matters at this point, because, well, he's marrying, and it is all synonymous with this, with a major twist of irony and of humor. And even Yahweh says, yeah, that's my boy. That's my boy. I'm proud of it. Greatest retort of all time. So that is part of this, and it's all woven together, and it's as if it was one seamless story. And in that regard, Obed-Edom, who saves the day for Dod and the return of the Ark of the Covenant that Dod had a conniption fit over, says, I have nothing that I can do. He was mad at Yahweh for the way that things were handled, and he had no idea what to do. Then Yahweh impressed upon him that, well, let me explain this to you, because you need a change of mind and you need to have a different approach. And then Yahweh arranged for this man from Edom to reposition the Ark of the Covenant where it needed to be for Dod, therefore, to anoint it. And it is the man from Edom that was described in 3000 BCE that will come back in year 6000 CE, 3,000 years later, as the man from Edom, as Yeshayah explained in the 63rd chapter. He is the exact same individual, and we're told that he saves many. So in the Mizmor Psalms, we will discover that upon his return with Yahweh, Dod will be, well, it's Dod's seat of honor that will be as brilliant as the sun. And while his light will continue to be the brightest, he will not be alone. He is actually going to be accompanied by the best man for his wedding, his herald, who reflects his light as the lesser luminary, because we're told also in the 89th Mizmor, which is God's song to his beloved son, that the moon, the lesser luminary that reflects his light, will exist with him forever. And every member of Yahweh's covenant family who was adopted prior to his return will be transformed into light and will come to exist as a seven-dimensional being. And all the while, those who are part of the remnant, who are purged and ready for Yahweh's return with his beloved son, will have that opportunity as they enter the conditions that existed in Eden. This is absolutely magnificent. We now have Leah. I don't know if you can use this inside camera to get this chair here. Leah can sit in that chair. And those of you who know that Shannon brought this little bundle of joy, who is quite the wiggler, we'll see if we can get Kara and Leah. There we go. This is, well, the white nose there, that is Asher. But now what you're witnessing, that is Kara, baby Kara. And she is such a cutie. When Leah is saying that, Kara is extremely active, and Kara is a very bold girl.
And very bright.
Yeah, she is high energy, very intelligent, and extremely bold. She will go right after Asher and jump on top of Asher and Wookiee and chase them. And Kara knows absolutely no fear, and she wants to explore and influence all the world around her. So this is Leah with her new love, the cuteness herself, the adorable Kara. And I know that there are many that knew that Kara was arriving and asked for pictures. I don't think it gets any better than this. with Kara doing a Leia dinner tonight. I think I'll have finger for dinner, please.
Better than nose.
Yes, better. Well, yes. Kara last night decided that in the middle of the night she would suckle Leia's nose and say that, and
pull my hair,
pull her hair and suckle her nose. It's like going back to junior high school when girls did get stuff to other girls. So this is Kara saying, "I know how to get Leia's attention. This is what you do." Oh. So unbelievably adorable. So we are so grateful for Shannon bringing Kara to us,
cargo.
and having talked now at length to Shannon, I know that Shannon is entirely grateful having turned Kara over to us, because he has now come to realize that puppies are like babies, and they are a lot of work, and they need your undivided attention. This is really great therapy, though, for Leah. There's been some women who feigned to be covenant who were exceedingly nasty to her, and while we have all come to her defense and protected her and shored her up and loved her and fought on her behalf, so that she did not need to worry about any of it, it still takes its toll. And to be distracted and surrounded by something that cute and adorable and lovable, it is quite the thing. And of course, what you don't know is that Wookiee now is trying to get my attention. He's tried to climb up in my lap here just a moment ago. Wookiee has been accepting of Kara, but he's not thrilled with the idea that Kara is getting more of Leia's time than he is at the moment, and he's a bit, bummed out by that whole experience. This happens from time to time, and so we had a boys' day with the Wookiee today. Rich, Shannon, and Wookiee and I went to a restaurant called Cheeseburgers in Paradise. And Wookiee was the star of the show. The wait staff made a big deal out of Wookiee. We had chicken and hamburgers and just had a lovely time, and then took a ride. And he thought that being with the guys, well, it brought him back a smile. Anyway, this is life. We are in our own little Gan Eden. We got a taste of it even prior to re-entering it here on this beautiful island. And I think you know that we want to share it with you. We have opened our lives up to you. We have brought the covenant to you. We have shared insights relative to the Moed Mikre, to Yahweh, to his beloved son Dod, to the conditions of the covenant and its benefits that heretofore were unknown. So our role is to expose the truth, to share what God had to say about the most important times, events, places, people, things that are essential to our salvation, to our reconciliation, to our knowledge and understanding of Yahweh, to our appreciation of what he is offering and expecting in return. And very few things in this regard are as important as appreciating that Chag Sukah is a event that comprises everything from Teruah and Kippurim to the 7 + 1, 8 days of Sukah, and that they all work together as a collective whole, and that fire that we're witnessing outside and the smoke that rises up to the heavens and the pure, beautiful cleansing waters that are all part of it serve as a metaphor for what God is offering to us and wants us to understand and capitalize upon. So with that, I bid you a wonderful evening as we continue our analysis of Sukah. I promise we'll bring at least 2 more shows tomorrow. May even get Shannon to join us in one of the 2, and we will continue to share the joy of camping out with Yahweh.